r/AskReddit. What are the terrible aspects of being a Hogwarts student that the books gloss over? Detention is ducking brutal. As an 11-year-old first-year student, your detention is to search for a wounded unicorn in the Forbidden Forest, full of giant spiders and multiple other monsters that will slaughter and eat you, with just another 11-year-old and a dog. You're 11 now, child. Time to know what a dead unicorn looks like. You know what? Hermione saying being expelled is worse than death makes sense now. And it used to be even worse. Filch mentioned how detention used to be getting hung upside down by your ankles for hours. In one of the books, Molly has a fond remembrance of her and Arthur sneaking out at night and Arthur getting whipped when they get caught. She laughs about how he still has the scars. The only person who can't do magic is the janitor, the one janitor for the entire castle grounds. This kinda justifies why the janitor was so pissed off most of the times. The janitor was only for inside the castle. Hagrid was the caretaker of the grounds. Also, the house elves did most of the cleaning. Not entirely sure what Filch actually did. In Prisoner of Azkaban, he repairs the fat lady's portrait, so presumably he's kept around solely for his knowledge of painting restoration. It's not an easy task, especially without magic, but apparently he does the job excellently. Probably managed the house elves. And handed out punishments to students. The rules are ridiculous. Safety is a joke. All the teachers and students are also armed at all times. Defense against the dark arts is just a shooter drill for magic schools. Just like a regular school in the US. They always talk about how superior they are to muggles, yet muggles have telephones, and they are still using birds to communicate. I want a movie about the inevitable consequences of muggles learning of wizards en masse, and wanting regulation of these magic-wielding crazy people whose wars have been secretly destroying chunks of muggle society. Wizards, being the arrogant snobs they are, refuse to answer to muggles. Turns out wands make for ineffective weapons against a basic handgun, let alone stealth bombers, predator drones, cruise missiles, and armored personal carriers. So when tensions rise, and the war between the magical and mundane breaks out, it's actually more of an even fight than anyone could have guessed. I maintain that there is literally no way the magical community would win a muggle war. In a straight stand-up fight they have the advantage, but show me a wizard who understands the danger of landmines, a sniper rifle, etc. Most of them can't figure out how pants work, for crying out loud. Besides which, even if they somehow manage to survive that stuff most of the time, there aren't that many of them as far as I know. Muggles could literally drown magical culture in the bodies of our dead and still walk out the other side thinking we'd done a great job. Having to write with a quill on parchment. This has to be a pain to deal with. I'm left-handed, so I would end up smearing the entire line. Left-handed here, even writing on a whiteboard with dry erase is a pain. I have a little one I keep on my fridge where I make notes of things I need to do, and I've learned to write things backwards, starting at the last letter, working to the first, because I don't smudge that way. I can't even begin to imagine how terrible a quill would be. Learn Arabic. Write right to left. Problem solved for life. Seriously, they couldn't figure out a way to magic that shit. Well, Rita Skeeter had that quick quotes quill. I'm sure there's a simpler version of that item out there, it's just too expensive to hand out to a bunch of children. Constant terror attacks, because some kid just won't die. Imagine being an 11-year-old excited that you finally got your letter. You're ready to be placed into your house and learn magic, just like your parents and their parents before them. You also happen to be the same age as Harry Potter, so instead of getting to mind your own business and enjoy 7 years of school, you keep being put in harm's way for a kid who doesn't even know you exist. Yeah, I'm gonna need a book from the point of view of a Hufflepuff student who is just trying to get on with school whilst these 3 Gryffindor psychos keep ruining everything. Like that one episode of Community all about how they've been using the study room without ever reserving it, and the dean is in on it. That you could have 3 7-year bullies just jump you and turn you into a hairless rat with malaria puking out slugs every 20 seconds. Definitely would duck up a day. All those moving stairs you have to memorize the patterns of movement of. It probably takes hours for a new kid to get to class because of those stairs. You'd think there would be a guide for the students to follow. The stairs were one of the most unnecessary parts of the school. Constantly altering topology. I can only assume that the stairs were some earlier system that no one ever figured out how to turn off, or Dumbledore thought it was fun and made students more self-reliant. Hogwarts is a castle built in the year 990. It's trying to make it as hard as possible for an army of magic-hating muggles armed with swords to kill the children. As a result, it is in the middle of nowhere, disguised as a ruin. It's a castle with tall walls. The statues come to life as an instant army. It has 7 secret exit tunnels, and the inside is a constantly changing maze. It's definitely an older system, which I think would have actually made it very hard for invaders. I could completely see Dumbledore keeping it around for fun. Half the teaching staff sucks and the leadership just tolerates it. Sounds just like my high school back in the day. Sounds like the standard for the majority of schools and workplaces, lol. I keep thinking about the fact that Quidditch games don't end until the snitch is caught. Like the games are pretty short in the books, but imagine losing a couple days of classes because you're flying around trying to find a flying golden walnut. I forgot exactly what book it was, but it was mentioned there was a game that went on for like 3 months before the snitch was caught. Wait, then what's the point of the other balls and hoops? Still to score points. Getting the snitch doesn't mean you win, it just means you get 150 points plus the game ends. Like in the World Cup in the 4th book, Crumb caught the snitch, but Bulgaria, his team, still lost the game. I don't really understand the reasoning why someone would do it, but yeah, it happens. The blatant favoritism for Gryffindor. 1 billion points to Gryffindor. For repeatedly disobeying orders and endangering everybody's lives, infinite points to Gryffindor. Suck A1 Slytherin. Everyone always ducking says this, but Slytherin was the house that got all the favoritism before Harry arrived. Snape would award points to Slytherin for nothing, and would deduct points from the other houses for literally no reason. Harry, Ron and Hermione routinely saved the ducking world since they first arrived at Hogwarts. They were never given random points for no reason. Having a points system that is seemingly arbitrarily calculated and provided by all teachers, including the ability for teachers who are the heads of the houses to also give points to students willy-nilly. A teacher that is already biased towards Slytherin can get annoyed at a Gryffindor student for the smallest thing and find some rule that they broke to deduct literally as many points as they want, while providing as many as they want to a random Slytherin for what they perceptively believe is a good deed. Same for all of the other teachers, but we all know who the books painted as the types to do this sort of thing. These points vary in the amount, and, to my knowledge, there's no limit to how many can be taken or given. It's completely up to the person in charge, including prefects, to decide what is the worthy prize or punishment. Honestly, while the book showed this system being abused a few times, I'm surprised it was not more. The House Cup doesn't really mean anything though, like you don't actually get anything for winning, it's just used to induce competitiveness. You have a chance of a ghost walking in on you while trying to take a fat shit. I would be so anxious using the bathrooms, because ghosts seem to have no sense of privacy. Most of it I'd expect, at least those coming from Muggle life. No electronics, no computers, phones, game consoles, etc. Weird clothes that the movers gave up on pretty quickly, and strange food. I can only hope they even have toilet paper. May not be unusual for those who grew up that way, but for Harry and Hermione, must be torture. Kind of like comparing Amish to everyone else. It's touched briefly about the Weasleys' poor economic situation, but the fact that you need to buy your stuff for every year including a wand the first year, which is very expensive. So if you come from a really poor family, you get really crappy secondhand stuff, or possibly having to skip a year or several, just because you can't afford the necessities to attend the classes. Wasn't there a fund to help out students with the cost if necessary? Also orphans, like Tom Riddle. But you spell depends on the quality of your wand, so the fact that you can't become outstanding student because you can't afford perfect for you new wand is really horrible. This is true even for the brooms. Instead of having standardized equipment in a match, the player whose parents can afford the costliest broom has a clear advantage. This is the same in sports now. Go row crew at any university and you'll compete against a mix of newly minted 40,000 pound carbon fiber shells against boats that have been running for decades, only floating because the holes have been patched. It's why football/soccer is so popular. You don't need to pay a fortune to be able to compete. Not having any basic education classes. You need to write an essay? Too bad you never learned English. You need to budget your money? Too bad arithmancy is an option and you likely didn't take it. You want to learn basic skills like first aid or cooking using magic? Nah, but you'll be able to duel and protect yourself against dangerous creatures. Also no sex education. Are we expected to believe they are not going to experiment? Are STDs not a thing in the magical community? They must have some form of contraception, otherwise families wouldn't have such vastly different numbers of children. Maybe contraception's really expensive, hence the Weasleys having all the children and the Malfoys having one. Or maybe the Weasleys just wanted a lot of children. Either way, they're able to control that. How were there no underage pregnancies at Hogwarts? There's always at least one, right? Fetus deletus. Basically anything is hostile. Like, everything. If you're a muggle born and can't find a job in the wizard world, what do? Just go back home and do magic in your apartment while working at Ducking Walmart? Harry Potter and the Astad or Greta. Find a nice spot of land. Set up your enchantments. Start magically building up your house. In the muggle world, magic a diploma/degree. Find a high-paying job. It's not like they can jail you when they find out. Insert your records into the school's system. Work at Walmart? Bitch please, insert your name into multiple companies' payrolls and have them send you checks while you don't do shit. The weird hiring practices for staff. This year's teacher is, yes, a centaur who wandered out of the forest. Let's see, also, a werewolf. How's about a ducking teacher who used to be a wizard Nazi? Just dangerous people who've never been trained to teach. Just because you're good at something doesn't mean you will be good at teaching it to others. Yes, old Albus seemed to hire people on gut feel rather than whether they actually knew how to teach/were remotely qualified or not. The size of the place. Just had potions and now I've got to walk for 2 hours to get to the other side of this huge castle for my next lesson.